About 3 decades ago, my nephew Kyle was a toddler when he discovered the full moon for the first time. For a day or two, he would talk about nothing else. Then a week later, he was out on a summer evening and looked in vain for the moon. He was genuinely puzzled. "Where did the moon go?" his mother asked him. After a moment's reflection, he shrugged and simply said, "Exploded." That explanation covered the facts as far as he was able to observe, but it wouldn't be long before the moon again dominated the night sky. The moon is the most visible and obvious object in the night sky. The sun is brighter, of course, but we can't look directly at it. The downside is that the full moon obscures all but the brightest stars. Even when we can't see it, the moon still has a powerful influence through tides. Thinking about the moon might just give us a way of looking at the ascension of Jesus, why it was necessary, and why we can say in some sense that Jesus has not departed at all. The ascension of Jesus into heaven appears in two places in the scriptures, in Luke and in Acts. The accounts in the Gospel of Luke and in the Acts of the Apostles includes a few different details. We're used to that when dealing with stories from the Gospels. Different witnesses notice different things and emphasize different points for different reasons. But the same author wrote the Gospel and the Acts. Why are they different? Well, a lot has to do with the position of the two texts. The account of Luke's Gospel caps the ministry of Jesus. It's the time for blessings and farewell. But the account in Acts is the beginning of our part of the story, a book that is still being written today by every Christian who works as a missionary, volunteers in a soup kitchen, sorts clothes at a domestic violence shelter, or teaches in a Sunday school. Far from being symptoms of some strange gospel that ignores the divinity of Christ and his imminent return, these actions are proof that we take his word seriously and are doing exactly what we're told to do. This day, we will look at both passages. We're going to begin with this afternoon's reading from the Gospel of Luke. It comes right after Jesus eats with his disciples. In the face of their disbelief, standing before the risen Lord, Jesus asks the disciples for something to eat and is given a piece of broiled fish. That fish not only confirmed that the risen Jesus was not a spirit or ghost, but a living, breathing, resurrected Lord. It also symbolized the unity of the earth church. Luke was writing some decades after the event. He was describing and trying to assure the Roman authorities that the Christian faith was revolutionary in the spiritual and not political sense. It was not the intent of the first Christians to overthrow emperors. They were only temporary blips on a history's radar screen. The disciples of Jesus meant to turn the world upside down in a different way. Jews and Gentiles, rich and poor, slave and free, men and women, were separated in rigidly segregated Roman society. But fish, bread, and wine brought them all together around the table of the Lord. Whereas Jews and Gentiles could not eat the same meat, they both could eat fish and did. Frescoes depicting shared meals by the Christians usually showed bread, wine, and fish. So this fish that Jesus ate before the ascension is a sign that something great is about to happen, and God's people are the ones to do it. Keeping in mind that the same hand wrote the ending of Luke and the beginning of Acts, it's useful to see what is written there. Acts is the second volume of a larger work that began with the Gospel of Luke. In the Gospel, individuals from all walks of life are introduced to the life and ministry of Jesus, who travels throughout Palestine and finally focuses on Jerusalem, where he is executed, resurrected, and ascended into heaven. The story of the good news in Acts, on the other hand, begins in Jerusalem and spreads throughout the empire, ending when Paul reaches Rome as a prisoner. The Gospel of Luke brings us all to Jerusalem, and Acts sends us out to the ends of the earth. The introductions to both books are addressed to Theophilus. Oh, I can never say that right. Theophilus. Theophilus. I think it's close enough. Names, I'll tell you folks, I have more trouble with. Theophilus, who is perhaps a patron lending financial support to the writing of the works. It seems clear that Acts was written by the biblical Luke, who was mentioned by Paul in his letters and may well have been Paul's personal physician. In any case, Luke was writing to an influential and rich convert who is new in the faith. In Acts, Luke begins where he left off, with the Ascension of Jesus. But in Acts chapter 1, verse 8, Jesus had commanded the apostles to go from Jerusalem to Judea and Samaria, and then into all the world. As former missionary Chalmer Paul put it, Jesus directs their minds away from the matter of times and seasons and onto the task that awaits them. And then to confirm this, while the apostles are staring up into the air in awe and wonder, two individuals who resemble the angels in the empty tomb tell the apostles that Jesus will return in the same manner in which he left. The story, as it continues, is not one in which God's people meet simply to reverence Jesus and his ministry, although praise and worship are woven throughout the story. But they go forth to the four corners of the world to take his message to all people. A church that is turned totally inward is not ministering. Small group Bible study, support groups, and Christian education are all essential ministries of the church. We are meant to encourage and support each other, but that must be balanced by the knowledge that not everyone has come to know the love we share as the body of Christ. The church must be in mission to the community as well as to the world. This activity is blessed with a deadline to make us take it seriously, for sooner or later, Jesus is returning. Christians believe that if Jesus ascended into heaven, it was with the intent to return. Even as Jesus prepares to vacate the scene, the disciples ask the obvious question, Lord, is this the time when you will restore the kingdom to Israel? His reply is that it's not for you to know the times or periods that the Father has set by his own authority. Nothing could be clearer than the fact that we are not to know the day and time of Jesus' return. Despite that, a lot of time and energy is wasted trying to figure it out. I know that there are plenty of people out there who are very concerned about the exact moment that Jesus will return. They spend a lot of time calculating, speaking about arcane minutiae and obtuse calculations, and some sort of incomprehensible Sanskrit, even though Jesus made it clear that no one knows the hour, not even Jesus himself, in the human form. The late Bernard Eller, professor and writer in his book, The Most Revealing Book of the Bible, makes the point that everyone who has used Revelation as a calendar is batting .000. They've all been wrong. Each new crop insists that they're the first ones to get it right. And they know something no one else could possibly know. That assumes in some way God has intended everyone to get a portion of Scripture wrong until the last days. I don't accept that assumption. Sometimes it's easier to learn from the past than the present. One of the best examples of the futility of calculations comes from the 19th century. On September 27, 1868, a small group of believers climbed a haystack to be closer to heaven as they waited for their Lord to descend from the clouds. I'm getting a vision of that here. Despite their fervent prayers and their beliefs in the biblical calculations of William C. Thurman, circa 1830 to 1906, nothing happened. Go figure. Eventually, some local rowdies set fire to the hay, forcing the believers to come down. Severely disappointed, I might say. It wouldn't be the last time. Thurman was a Virginia Baptist who wrote on many different subjects, including biblical non-resistance, foot washing, and baptism. But he was best known for his views on the end of the world. In sealed book of Daniel opened, he set the date for the return of Christ on September 27th, 1868. Many Christians were attracted to his ideas. Undeterred by the failure of his calculations, he rescheduled the end of the world for a month later, on October 28th. Then on October 27th, 1869. Then on April 19th, 1875. Even though his recalculations proved to be just as flawed, he attracted many followers throughout his life who left their churches and joined him. Some of these Thermonites, as they came to be known, later rejoined their churches, but others may have been driven away from the faith through their disillusionment. It is said that when one elder was offered one of Thurman's books, he declined, Riley noting that he already had enough kindling. Thurman continued to predict the end of the world until he died, penniless, in 1906, at which time he had recalculated the end of the world for 1917. Christian writer C.S. Lewis may have said it best in his essay, The World's Last Night, when he wrote that the most important thing was not that we know when Jesus would return, but that we should be found at our post, doing the thing God meant us to be doing. Let us return to the place where we began, talking about the moon. The risen Lord, Jesus, reminds me of the moon and that he shed light in dark places. He transfigured the landscape. He helped us to see the Father's kingdom that would only be truly seen with the dawn of the final days and God's restoration of justice. And like the phases of the moon, throughout his ministry to this day, Jesus seems to appear brighter and at times to disappear altogether. Yet his influence, like the tides, is felt wherever we see him or not. Most importantly, just as the full moon obliterates all but the brightest stars, so too I think that if Jesus had not ascended into heaven, we may not have grasped our opportunity as disciples at doing the work of the Father, of being the visible presence of the kingdom, the body of Christ. We might have stood like turkeys who are said to stare up at the sky during the rain only to drown, staring with our mouths open at wonder of the risen Lord. There's an eternity for that. Right now, the true confirmation of our belief comes from our resolve to be God's people here on earth. The preacher Chrysostom, whose name means golden throat in Greek, once said that in the resurrection, the disciples saw the end, but not the beginning. In the ascension, they saw the beginning, but not the end. Every day is a new beginning to proclaim Jesus as Lord through mission, ministry, service, and proclamation. This is doable because the real celebration of the ascension comes when we stop looking at the sky and start looking around for what God has for us to do. Amen. Announcements. We got a big one. Big one. Next Sunday, we have a change in service. So next Sunday will be at 11 a.m. rather than 3 p.m. I do apologize for the short notice. I am going to be away on a meeting and I cannot be here. So the best thing for us to do at that point is to just bump it up a little bit to 11 o'clock. I think y'all can handle it. 11 o'clock. Okay. That's going to be interesting. So we'll have to think about that as well. Why are you letting me know that now? I texted you earlier this week, but then I realized you probably I think I must have missed that. Well, no, it's actually he's talking about the week after that as well. So what we'll do is so let's just do that now. Starting so next Sunday we will do a 11 o'clock service. The Sunday after we'll do an 11 o'clock service. And what does that make the next Sunday after that? Okay. Next Sunday is what? Next Sunday is what? Okay, next Sunday is also what, though? Let's stop for that for a second. Next Sunday is what? Pentecost. The birth of our church. The birthday, considered the birthday of the church, okay? Now go on. The Sunday after that Okay, and then so the next Sunday, which will be okay. So for the remainder of the month of May, we will meet at 11 o'clock on Sunday. Then on June the 3rd, which is be a big day for us because we'll be celebrating our 2-year anniversary as a church. So we'll do that on June the 3rd, and we'll go back to 3 o'clock service. Yeah, you can bake a cake. Go right ahead. Just don't bake it like the one you baked for what's his name back there. I'm just playing with you, Tim. The cake was actually very good. It was just, well, no, it wasn't what I expected. I wasn't. I mean, I really wasn't. I don't want to get into it now. Let's not even go there. Okay, but I mean, it was good. Announcements. Look at all this wonderful graphics we're doing here. We now have a podcast. Hey, have you heard about that yet? We have a podcast. We can listen on Pocket Casts. We can listen on Apple Podcasts. We can listen on Anchor. And of course, we can listen on now with Radio Public. All you gotta do is search for Your Path with Bishop Mark. The name of the blog is, or the podcast is Your Path with Bishop Mark. Yeah, here's the surfing change. Beautiful. There it is. So it won't be the 27th, returning at 3 p.m. It'll be June the 3rd. June the 3rd, we'll return at 3 p.m. So the next 2 Sundays at 11. Pass it on. If you know anybody that's not here today, please let them know. Okay? Atque Ali. Oh, that's not an announcement, right? Prayer at DallasULC.com. Pray. You're going to have to put prayer in there. Pray at DallasULC.com. If you have any prayer requests, or if you have you'd like to dedicate one of the services that we have available coming up to a loved one or to anyone. I mean, look, you can do it for birthday gifts, you can do it for graduation gifts, you can do it for somebody who's you're celebrating the life of who's passed on. Whatever you'd like. Well, within reason. And we just ask for a small donation to the church to help cover the cost of that service. Fantastic. I mean, it's a great way to honor the memory of somebody. And it's also a great way to give a gift. It really is. I mean, think about that. Your graduation gift, they offer you a mass. Man, that's kind of nice. Of course. Prayer is a wonderful, strong thing. And no matter what language, no matter what religion, no matter what nationality, no matter what sex, no matter what you are, prayer is a universal language. Well, that's huge. And like I say, God understands all those languages and hears us all. And keep praying, folks. Yeah, we do have Facebook. The reason we don't, do we actually have they changed that though. It was YouTube that changed it. Facebook, we still have it. It's Dallas ULC. So it's facebook.com/Dallas ULC. Sure. And we're not always now. Listen, when you try and chat with us on there, we're not always right at liberty to chat right back. Leave a message, we'll get back to you. Or if sometimes you'll catch us, and we'll be able to chat with you right away. So that's kind of cool too. We like to try and keep it available. It's just not always possible. Please like us on there. Mm-hmm. We try and keep Facebook, especially. We keep any new announcements or things like that. That's where the updates are going to be. That's where you're going to find them first, and you're going to see them first there because we get those out there before we even get them in the service bulletin. Yeah, we're working on that. We have some email names, don't we? I mean, we had when they signed up for the church and everything. So we got a few. Put some more butts in the seats. This is not getting any better. Tim, mock it up, and I'll talk to you about it. You have to come to me with a proposal. Bring the proposal to me. I'll sit down and look at it. I'll look at the cost of it. I mean, we can do our printing for pretty cheap, especially on business cards. Says if we do a cheap business card, not a cheap business card, a card that's not real heavy, thick stock, and all things cost effective, things that are to get the message across, but don't have to be something like some of the other cards we've seen that have to go the foil and the thickness and all that. So we don't need all that, right? So let's talk about it. Come to me anytime. We'll talk about that. All right. So let's close this out and move on to our roundtable because we have a lot to talk about today. I hope not many of us here, but we will talk anyway. So normally right here I go, what do you like, what do you not like, what do you want to keep, what do you want to get rid of? But unfortunately, it looks like the few people we had to have for service today had other engagements and couldn't stay for the post service, so that's okay. I mean, it's not mandatory, it's voluntary, but so it's just you and I today.
Yep.
So I thought that I would, since we have this opportunity, I would take the time to introduce you to all the people out there who don't know who you are. Justin has been with the church for what, a little over 6 months now?
Somewhere around there, 6, 7 months.
Okay.
Feels like 9 or 10.
Feels like 9 or 10 years, doesn't it? Justin and I have known each other for several years. And it's kind of strange the way that he came to the church. I think I just kept hounding you, didn't I?
Yeah, basically, which that's kind of how we met anyways.
Keep pounding, and then he finally came to a service. And I tell you, he shocked me because he came again. And he came again to another service and to another service. And I think you were hooked.
Yeah. And
that's great. I mean, I think that's wonderful. That makes me feel like we're doing something right here because, your talent has been immensely appreciated.
Thank you.
Tell us a little bit about what you do here at the church.
Well, it's I guess the official titles that have piled up so far. Director of IT was the big one that we started with.
That's the big one.
So, man, it's the servers in the back and the computers up front. And
that's a lot. I mean, that's a lot of stuff.
That's the security and all that stuff, however minimal it might be. Then I also are the meat of the design for the program, and then the PowerPoint I do, which, I mean, that was mostly designed from you anyways.
That's okay, though. You've taken it over and you've done a great job.
And then for Sunday services, I do most of the setups, and then I run the actual teleprompter and the PowerPoint and everything back there.
God.
And then the sound equipment that we've got now as well.
Yeah, he's doing just about anything that has to do with computers or audiovisual, he's taken care of. So I can't really see. Is this where the camera is? Okay. Yeah. I'm not used to looking right at the camera, so we're like kind of doing this dialogue thing. Yeah. I'm having to figure out where we are. It's a lot of bright lights, folks. Okay. So just tell me about, what made you, decide to, look, you had no idea what we're doing here. I'm just a crazy guy having a church service in his apartment or his condo, and you can decide to come. What in the world made you decide to come back again?
Well, the biggest draw was always the fact that you preached that God is not a separate entity from what everyone else views as a greater power. You preached that God was all of those greater powers, just with the different names.
Sure.
And that was the biggest lure, always for me. And
why?
Like what used to be the reason that I would discount God is now the reason that I know that He exists.
So why did you discount God?
Because it was more of a societal thing.
Okay.
Is the best way of saying it. It was easier to go with that flow and then fall in line and just kind of stay with it.
Isn't it always? It's always easier to go with the flow. We talked about that a couple of weeks ago about being shepherds and not sheep.
Right.
About not going with the easy and actually shepherds don't go with the easy. They make changes and they do the hard thing. And sometimes they're looked at like they're crazy. But they have to bring the sheep with them, bring the flock with them, and they have to become shepherds and lead the sheep. That's what we're called to do as Christians.
Right.
So, you were here for a little bit of time, and you volunteered for the church. Not only were you coming to the church now, but you were crazy and you volunteered for the church.
Well, the troubles that were
obvious
around before were outside of the church, that was annoying enough.
Don't spread all the dirty laundry.
No, so my natural want is to help, as it is already, and this was a very natural progression to come into helping this church that I fell in love with so quickly. So.
Well, I'm glad to hear that because, like I say, you are. Let me tell you, the first day he came in. I did the program every week, and that's a lot of work to do by yourself. It just was. Yeah. It was just a lot of work to get it all. And I can't. He's got all these cute little programs and everything. He gets all the formatting done and everything for him all beforehand. I'm sitting there line by line trying to put it in and make it fit everywhere, right? So the first day that he comes in to volunteer, I said, okay, what I want you to do is I want you to watch me do a program, and then I want to let you do a program, and I'm going to sit here with you and watch you do it. He had no questions. None. Not only did he have no questions, he wrote a syllabus about how to write the programs, how to make the programs exactly the way I told him to do it. So now that anybody that comes in can read this syllabus, this whatever you want to call it, that's what I call it, the syllabus, on this is the steps you take to make our church service. This is our program. It's done. I mean, it's so simple. I mean, this is what, people pay big time money for this. Don't think about it. That's feel free to donate. It's DallasULC.com. There's a donate page right there. So tell us a little bit about your background in faith. What kind of faith background do you have?
Well, growing up, I didn't really ever have much. I mean, my grandparents weren't even going to church before my grandfather, I guess, was diagnosed with cancer. So it was about that time that they started going back. They found the church, Sunnyvale First Baptist in Mesquite, or just outside of Mesquite, obviously.
Big church, from what I understand.
At one time, it was big. It was really big.
Still a big building.
It's a big building. They've got some new leadership. That
happens. That happens.
But they were real good. They were not real big with the church. They just were. They would go every Sunday. And about the time that I came out was whenever I started going as well, because they had asked me to go, and it was something to do with them, and it was a bit of getting away from the family and having someone else there to listen, because that youth minister they didn't care, the church leadership didn't care that I was gay.
That's interesting though, because you say when you came out, you went to church, which is, I mean, a lot of there are what they call gay churches. And there are accepting churches, and there are, all-inclusive churches. This church was really none of those.
No, you wouldn't. I mean, it's a Baptist church, first of all.
So why in the world?
I mean, it was just there's, like we said, there's no coincidences in any of that.
There's never a coincidence, is there?
I guess it laid a bit of groundwork. I mean, I was baptized there. And it was, looking back on it, a bit of going through the motions.
Sure,
but it was still a bit of a foundational premise. For this at this point, I guess.
I mean, I think the thing is, you obviously have talent to do what we needed done. I mean, in our offices, you've been, like I said, just fantastic. But to find that also that you have this common thinking in the way that we believe that God is and that our Christian faith is. Because let me tell you something, we're pretty out there on some stuff. It's kind of crazy.
But what's crazy is that most of the way our church teaches is exactly the way I've always thought of what you would consider a greater power. Because my greater power was always the belief in knowledge, the belief that there was always more to learn, and that the whole point of it was to pass it along.
Absolutely.
And so being able to finally link that God is knowledge and that he wants you to pass that information along, that is how you were a shepherd. That was all that I ever needed at that point.
You hear this, right? Now, see, I've actually, I'm going to tell you something that's kind of a secret to most of our congregants, but I've actually offered, he's only been here a little over almost 7 months, okay? I've actually offered him a deaconship here at the church because he's qualified. I mean, he has the desire, he has the will to learn, he has the ability to he has the ability to lead, he doesn't know it yet. So I'm still waiting on his answer. Still waiting. It's okay. I want you to be sure, and I'm throwing it on you pretty quick. I am, but I have faith in you, and we just have to, you've got it down. I mean, every week he challenges me on the Bible, and it's wonderful. The way he keeps up with it like this, and he's right on it. We're going through it, several times a week in the same verse, and the same this, that. But a lot of people still don't get that. I mean, I've had people that work for me in the past that, we've gone through it all week and they still don't know what verse we're reading or what book we're reading it from, or that they were an apostle, or what music, the gospel,
what music was being queued up, or
anything like that. And that's not necessarily saying anything bad about them. That just wasn't their forte. That just wasn't for them. That's not what they should have been doing. And
kudos to them for at least giving the try.
Hey, they were here when nobody else was.
Yeah, that's more than most.
So that's been. I've had a couple times when I've done the service by myself, and let me tell you, it's not only very jumpy, because I'm running back and forth to the computer, but it's. I mean, like I said, I like to have some audience participation out there where I can see. Because if I'm saying something totally off the wall, and I'm just looking at a camera, I can't see your face. So I don't know that you're not getting it.
And right up until we have some sort of live stream where people can comment and stuff,
Oh,
we
Lord.
really won't know.
Then I'll really be confused.
That would be just an amen typing it on the computer or whatnot.
Where do you see yourself? I'm going to put you on the spot. Where do you see yourself in this body of Christ, in this church? And where do you see the church going? Honestly, give me your honest opinion.
Well, the second part, I guess, would be the easier answer,
It would
obviously. I mean, we could say that our hope, obviously, is to grow out of where we're at now.
Right.
And to get at least into a small building, a small church, anything that's not here. Because this is the biggest...
Well, it's not horrible. I mean, we've got the space,
but it's the single largest.
condo now.
But it's the single largest area that we have.
It is.
To getting more membership in
Because
here.
it is a residential area. It is residential, and it's not. I can't market it the way I want to, and I can't.
Yeah.
It's just not. It's not a church.
No.
People just don't feel comfortable.
Especially since it's gated and
Right.
this and that and other stuff.
And yeah, if anybody out there knows, I mean, look, Dallas is tough right now. We're looking very hard. We just need a very small space to lease. To have our church services, and we're not crazy. We don't blast the walls down. We're not going to come in and it'll be nice and quiet. Just most of the week, just be office duties up there, and then services on Sunday. So help us out if you know of anybody that's doing real estate or anything. Hey, we take donations too. It's tax deductible. I'm telling you. All right. And then the other part of the question.
Honestly, that one I've not given it much thought. I guess
He's good. He's
He's
good. He's leaving us in limbo on this one.
Obviously, I can't. It's hard to stay stagnant for me.
Well,
It's always been hard to stay.
You don't stay stagnant. You're always learning, and you're always teaching too. You just don't know it. You don't know it. I mean, you have become a leader here, and I think the guys look up to you. I think they listen to you, as
One would hope.
I hope, and that's admirable. I'm not sure you realized that you had that quality within you. I think that you realize you had a lot of talent. You know your talents, but I don't think you ever realized your ability to jump in there and lead. I don't, and I think once you fully realize that, you may be taking my job. If you're on this.
Well, it's one of those if the needs dictate.
Well, needs are put there, and God puts us in the place of those needs and in the vicinity of those needs for a reason. It's up to us to answer His call. I'm trying to. I really am trying. Okay. All right, so let's talk, just so we can talk a little bit about it, because we had the service today. We talked about the Ascension of Christ into heaven. And we gave some reasons about the moon and this and that and all those things.
I really did enjoy that dichotomy that they were talking about with the moon, and the opening story was rather cute.
It's cute. Yeah.
This one I had read through before, as I normally do. That was the only part that I had read, was that moon exploding thing. Cute. That was really adorable.
Now, if I can just get the names right in the Bible, I don't think I will ever. I mean, all through, I just won't get it. I just can't do it. They go in, and there's somebody will tell me the right pronunciation of it, and I'll say it, and the next time I have to say it again,
every single time. It doesn't
every
matter.
time it doesn't matter. It gets stuck.
Where was it at? Minutia.
Yeah, minutia. I'm sorry. What did I say? What did I say? And see, listen, English was big for me. I was the editor of the newspaper in Jesuit. Starting my freshman year, I was the only freshman ever named editor of the Roundup.
That doesn't necessarily mean you can pronounce these words.
No, but I was good. I was an orator. I was an actor. I'm excellent in public speaking. It's just and when you're looking at it, look at it this way.
Yeah,
it's totally different reading it from a script, or even just saying the word from your mind, and going off the teleprompter or going off of your piece of paper. It's just different. You see things differently.
And being an actor, you're actually already on stage. You're constantly saying it over and over and over again at that point.
Right. It's rehearsal. We don't really have much of a rehearsal here. I read over I write my sermon. I read over the sermon, and we go from there.
Right. And then I try my best to catch some mistakes and formatting stuff as I put it in the teleprompter and whatnot.
And then I don't know about it, and I go, wait, I can write that.
Yeah. Well, today there was a bunch of different stuff that I hadn't caught that you were actually really on top of, that I wasn't expecting for you to really be on top of. Like, I was pausing. And
I saw that, and you were looking at me kind of going... Yes, folks, I do use a teleprompter. I do that because I want to make sure that I get all of the information in, and I have a tendency to wonder when I just talk.
Yes.
I'll just kind of we'll go off way over here in right field, and we'll go way over here in left field, which will be going this way.
I mean, watch any of the other roundtables sometimes.
Sure. We get on some crazy stuff. That's not all just me, though.
No.
I mean, that's not all me.
No, not at all.
But by doing that, I'm assured of the fact that I get the message out to you that I'm trying to get out, and I get this message out to the people here in the church. And then at the round table, we can go from there.
Right.
We can talk about whatever we want to then, and they can expand on it.
And that's the point of the round table, is to be able to go out off script, more or less.
It's kind of, I think of it as levels. We have the gospel, where I read the gospel from the Bible. Okay. Yeah, a lot of people don't understand that. It's kind of rough. I mean, sometimes it's hard to really put yourself into those shoes and understand it.
Especially as we get farther and farther away from that time period. I've noticed back whenever I was first going to Sunnyvale First Baptist, some of those ideas I would grasp a little bit better or differently.
Sure.
Maybe because I didn't have all of these other worldly influences at that time to influence me.
Innocence, maybe.
Right.
So innocence lost.
A little bit.
Yeah.
But now, I mean, that's the big deal with the round table. And then your sermons is being able to bring in some of the new current
That's the idea.
Of relations.
That's the idea. I consider it like a level system. So you got the gospel, and it's great. Wonderful words there. Some great words of wisdom, things to live by. Wonderful stories about Jesus Christ and how He is our Savior. Well, we don't always understand all that. It can be kind of confusing. So we go to my sermon, and my sermon is me basically talking to you and telling you this is what I believe that this is, and this is how I interpret this, and this is how we at this church believe, and we go from there. Well, that doesn't always get it right either, because I can't relate with everybody, and
I mean,
some people just don't get it. And
even last week, you had to stop after your sermon to make an actual point of what our beliefs and everything were.
And sometimes I don't get it. Honestly, I mean, sometimes I don't get it. Sometimes and these guys catch it sometimes, catch things about the sermon or about the gospel that I've never even thought of, and I go, well, that's another way to think of that. That's really interesting. There's so many ways to look at one verse of a sermon. Think about the whole of a gospel. Think about the whole book of the Bible, where all of these different minds can meet and look at and just so many. It's a kaleidoscope of ideas and different ways to look at it and points of view. It's amazing what you can get if all that could just. There's no one point of view to the Bible. It's no right or wrong way to read it, but it's the way you take it and interpret it, and it's amazing all the different ways that it's done.
And rather than being hostile about the information you're getting, why not
open your mind,
allow that information, and then
take what you want and you use
exactly,
and leave the rest.
And there's no point in nitpicking, like this says the arcane minutia of the Bible. There's no point in
what does that mean?
It's the tiny little insignificant details at times.
Right.
Is what that
nitpicking stuff.
Exactly. And I mean, that's what wars have started over in the past and whatnot. So.
And of course, and the final step of that little trichotomy is the round table, where I open it up. Really, I don't want to do as much speaking. I think I speak too much during the round table, but I try and get the guys and get the gals in the church here to talk and to see what they think about things, and it leads us to wherever it leads us. We go, and when we go as long as it feels comfortable. When I start seeing a couple yawns or a little fidgeting around, I pretty much know it's time to kind of cut it off. So,
and I mean that's right that you talk as much as you do, because that's the point of the leader at that time, is you're having to bring together all those crazy ideas that we throw out at you.
Oh yeah,
and you've gone through enough in your life that you're able to see different points of view and bring all those different stories together.
Sometimes
3 or 4 different stories, oftentimes.
Not always. I tell you, sometimes poor Ronnie. I mean, he's got an amazing mind, but
he can't always get to the final destination.
And we've gone to 4 different
from where we've started,
almost final destinations before we get there. And I'm going,
I can't keep up with it.
I don't know where you are right now, but thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
So
he's just one word, and he takes a left.
He's got an amazing mind. He does, and we just got to get him to hone that in a little bit.
Yeah.
So this resurrection, this ascension of Jesus Christ. What do you think about
that? To see anybody just rise up in the air, that would.
Well, first of all, you're seeing a man who was just killed,
still with the holes in his hands and whatnot.
Talking about he's got wounds in his hands and his feet, and he just ate some fish.
Yeah. Some boiled fish.
So Well, I mean, here's like I said, what is this, ghost? Zombie? What's going on here?
I mean, clearly not, because he was eating. Not a zombie, because he wasn't eating us.
Is that what zombies do?
Yeah.
I don't understand the zombie thing. I don't get it. Let's not get into it,
Yeah.
but I don't understand it. I don't have this infatuation with zombies.
It's the new thing.
Anyway, I guess. So, Jesus Christ, why does he ascend to heaven? Why does he and his body, why does he go up there?
It's the representation that's what we will do after we turn to dust, is that our souls will ascend with him into heaven.
Is that all?
Well, I'm sure it's not all. But
Well, what else did I talk about? First of all, we talked about the two different books of the Bible that we talked about today, which was Acts of the Apostle, and Luke.
Yeah.
And they were both written by the same author, but both books are very, very different. And one ends, Luke ends with the ascension of Christ, and the book, the Acts of the Apostles, begins with it. And the Acts of the Apostles is actually the beginning of our ministry. It's when we're going out to the four corners of the world, and we're still doing that now. That's what we're doing now, is that ministry, that Christian ministry, is what is started in the Acts of the Apostles. So it talks about how they're very different because of the fact that one's an ending and farewell, and one is
the beginning
of us.
Yeah.
And what we're supposed to do. I'm trying to kind of see if I can find where we. There's a lot. It's hard to always.
Yeah, because the sermon got in a bit with the person who would announce the end of the world was coming, and
I know.
And I mean, there've been.
I have more stories about the end of the world coming than you'll ever know.
There've been so many of them, and I mean, we all experienced the end of the world several times through our lives, as it is, anyways, which is an interesting alternative look on that one as well.
It is.
And I like what they say, how while he and his ideas would have brought many people into the greater church, at the same time, think of how many people that pushed away as well, unfortunately.
And, I'm happy with anybody going and worshiping. I think that to each their own. A mega church, great. If you love that, great. A small little, prayer group, great. Yeah. But do something. Doing it by yourself is great, but you need guidance. You need somebody to nudge you every now and then. You need another person there to sometimes keep you on your straight and narrow. And that's what we do as Christians, brothers and sisters. We keep each other. I'm not here to judge you. I'm not here to tell you what your path is. I'm not here to tell you how you're supposed to live your life. God does that.
But we're here to hold your hand.
Amen.
When you need your hand held.
That's right.
And even if when you don't realize that you need a little bit of a shoulder or whatever. That's what other people are here for.
We don't. Right. We don't realize. Well, we talked about last week. We talked about a lady who was going to the gym and working out, and they thought something was wrong with her. Just awful. Mm-hmm. She ended up being anorexic,
right,
and very, very sick, and almost died.
And she had no idea that she was about to be on death's door at that point.
Yeah, no idea. All right. Most importantly, just as the full moon obliterates all but the brightest stars, so too I think that if Jesus had not ascended into heaven, we might not have grasped our opportunity as disciples at doing the work of the Father and being visible presence of the kingdom, the body of Christ. We might have stood like turkeys who are said to stare up at the sky during the rainstorm only to drown. And I like that one.
Yeah, I like that one too.
Staring with our mouths open at the wonder of the risen Lord. There's an eternity for that. Right now, the true confirmation of our belief comes from our resolve to be God's people here on the earth.
That
sums it up.
That was a great one, because I mean that perfectly explains.
Well, that's what it is. I mean,
why he ascended? Because I mean, we would have been too busy standing here, gawking in awe at this man with holes in his hands for all eternity if he had just stayed down here. Right. On top of the fact that, well, how are we gonna get up to heaven if he never actually goes himself? He's the one who's supposed to hold our hands.
Well, he's been there.
You know what I mean?
Sure, I know what you mean. And God can do anything, obviously. But
still,
for our minds, I think, yeah, you're right. I mean, it shows it's a visible sign of what he's offering to us.
Right. And I mean, think about having a supernova on planet Earth of Jesus. That basically is the supernova of religion at that point that you were just fixated on, rather than doing God's work.
Would be. I mean, talk about pilgrimages.
Yeah.
You have like every evangelist out there with all their tents, and I saw Jesus, and he this and that. It's not about that, folks.
No.
It's not about that. Where do you want to go with this now?
Not sure. I think that was a good wrap up of it.
Okay. Next week is Pentecost. It is considered by most Christian church is
The official birth
of the church.
Yes.
It's the birthday of the church. It's when the Holy Spirit descends upon the apostles, giving them knowledge and strength and courage to go and do what Christ has asked us to do, which is spread his word to all four corners of the earth. And we also ask at that time that the Holy Spirit descends upon us, because we need the courage. It's, look, starting a church is not easy. And it's people think that it's
keeping it running is even harder.
It is. We're trying. We're hanging on by a shoestring. We'd love to have any of y'all out there come to church with us. Come check us out.
Or hit us up. Send us messages.
At least let us know you're listening.
We would love to know that you're listening out there.
Because if we hear from you, and you can at least give us your opinion, something.
Yeah.
I mean, because we thrive on that. One thing we thrive on not being is a stagnant church. I
Right.
refuse to be like the Catholic Church. I hate to do this to them, but it's the best example. The Catholic Church that I grew up in, and have all of my congregants regurgitating words that they've known, that they've been beaten into their heads all their lives. All they're standing up and sitting down and kneeling down in this, and they don't know what they're saying. They're not praying. I want, first of all, every week our service is different. None of the word. I mean, there's only a couple of things that are exactly the same. That's our creed and the Our Father. Everything else is pretty much different. And I'm always open. We're always open to change. You have a new idea. You want to change something here. You think it ought to be this. Well, bring it to us. Let's talk about it.
If there's something you want to hear, if there's something you think he should be preaching on or whatever,
come on with it.
Let us know.
Because I'm not here for me. I'm not here to hear myself talk. I'm here for you. And that's the whole idea of our church. We don't want to be stuck there. I mean, in 20 years, you probably won't recognize this church as what it was.
We would definitely hope that you go.
No, I do too. I mean, I want it to evolve into something, that's
wonderful,
works for each congregation. Hopefully, we'll have several congregations.
That would be great.
Look, I never want to get huge. I just don't see it happening.
No.
Roundtables like this won't happen in a mega church, and I need that to happen. That's the most important part of my service, I think. Yeah. So, all right. So next Sunday is Pentecost. We're changing the time. We're doing it at 11 o'clock.
11 o'clock.
I have an appointment, and the week after, we're also doing 11 o'clock.
Yes.
So until June, we have a bunch coming up.
Right.
So the rest of this month we're doing 11 o'clock service instead of 3 o'clock service.
Correct.
It's like crack of dawn.
It'll be interesting.
And then we go back to a 3 p.m. service in June, which that first Sunday in June we're going to celebrate our 2-year anniversary.
Yep, our 2-year anniversary is the Thursday before. As an official incorporated church,
yes. That's correct. That was our incorporation date, so that's our official beginning.
Right.
Wow. 2 years.
It's been a long time.
We've got to find a place.
Yeah.
All right, so that's it for today. So next Sunday, if you want to come in, 11 o'clock.
Feel free.
For those of you who couldn't come in at 3, now's your chance. Come in at 11 and see us, all right? Y'all have a great week. God bless you all, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you, guys.